Hello. Welcome to the 33rd episode of the Veggies Abroad Vegan Travel Podcast with the Chief Veggie Pusher, myself, Rebecca Gady-Sawicki. Some of you may already be familiar with Veggies Abroad, but for those of you who aren't, we're a full-service vegan travel company that offers custom planning services, small group trips, a helpful blog chock full of just about everything a vegan or veg-curious traveler could possibly need, and this podcast. If you're a follower on Instagram, then you know that maybe a couple weeks ago, a week and a half or so ago, we were in beautiful Puerto Rico. Now, you'll also know that I didn't share a ton on social media during the trip, which is not completely normal for most of my trips. But there are a couple reasons for that. One, I am planning to spend more time creating more content that's even more helpful for destinations that you might want to visit. And that's not always super easy on social media. And two, because I'm only one person and I have had to really evaluate where I'm spending my time and what I'm getting out of it, social media, as I'm sure won't come as a surprise to all of you listening, can suck the life out of you, whether you're running a business or it's a personal account. And I just don't have time for that. At some point, I'd love to give this job to somebody else to manage, but we're just not at that juncture yet. So for now, I have to put my energy into things that I know you'll all see, like this podcast and the newsletter. So good segue. If you haven't joined the newsletter, the link is in the show notes. No time is better than right now. Well, after this episode. In other news, we've launched our second tour to Thailand for December of this year. I added this departure because the first trip sold out pretty quickly, and I received many emails from people who were still interested. In addition to Thailand, space is available on our October Portugal trip. These are two very different but fabulous destinations for anyone who is into food and culture. Thailand is actually one of my favorites. It's such a beautiful and diverse country, and it doesn't hurt that the food is spectacular. On our last tour, one of the travelers said that she had been eating too much and that she actually shouldn't complain because that's rarely an issue. So if you're curious about either of our veggie tours that are still available for this year, because side note, the other ones did sell out, so don't sit back and wait forever. Skip back a few episodes and listen to our Costa Rica episode. That episode was done with two of our lovely travelers from that trip who joined to chat about their experience. It was their first group trip and their first veggie-focused trip, so they had a really great perspective to share. I'm sure one that you all would appreciate. Okay, so let's get back to the focus of today's episode, Puerto Rico. And joining me to chat all about it is my veggie traveling partner, Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm excited to talk about Puerto Rico. I really enjoyed the island, and I think you did too. And I will also say we've got a lot to cover. I've actually contemplated, should I try and put this all in one episode? But I think what I'm going to do for future episodes, I need to hear from people who are listening if these are destinations that you want more depth on, because we could easily do an entire episode dedicated just to food, just to the diversity of the island, just to culture. Like there's so much to it. And sometimes I feel like when I'm mapping out our agenda for these or our itinerary for the podcast, that some things get left because there's only so much you can cover in 1 hour. At least I try and keep it to an hour. So a little note to everyone listening, something to consider. Shoot me an email, send me a message on old Instagram if you enjoy hearing more depth of certain topics and subjects. So with this, I guess we'll start with what our itinerary was with visiting the the island. It is not its own separate country. It is a territory of the United States. Although I'm sure sometimes I feel like they're not technically a part of the United States, but I think that's probably a whole nother podcast episode as well too. So our itinerary, we started in Luquillo, which is the eastern part of the island. It's about, depending on traffic, a little over an hour from San Juan. From Luquillo, we headed south and made a stop in Ponce. And then from Ponce, we headed to the central part of the island and visited the beautiful mountains of Utuado. And then we ended back in San Juan. So we really made our way around, and that was purposeful because I know that there is a lot to see in Puerto Rico. And there was even more that I would have liked to have added, but I had to be very conscious of the time that we had. So, okay, that's where we went. That's what we did. Now let's get into the veggie meat of it all. Was there anything that was surprising to you about our visit to Puerto Rico?
You know what I was really surprised by? The first thing that probably struck me was the traffic. Holy moly.
You thought the traffic was bad?
For an island that is 111 miles wide by 39 miles north and south, it was like, oh my gosh. I feel like when we were driving through San Juan, it was like, I think every single person on that island probably had at least one or two cars. It was really crazy. I mean, and you know, I know it was just people going about their day and going to different places, but the people that are listening, we decided to rent a car because we were going to see so much of the island that it just made sense instead of trying to travel around by any other means. And we had this little beater, and Rebecca is always the driver on our trips, which is...
I don't trust Matt.
Which is something that everyone should know. And she's really good at driving in foreign countries. But let's just say that the traffic there, like, even for an expert driver like Rebecca, we were still getting caught, like, everywhere we went. So that's the first thing that really struck me and that really surprised me. I was like, wow, this is a small island and this is a lot of traffic. So people, be prepared for that. Now, on the other side, you know, there was things I was expecting, like great music and, you know.
Wait. I want to add to driving because driving was one of mine as well. That was surprising, but I wasn't surprised by the traffic because I knew San Juan would be busy. What I was surprised by were how nice Puerto Rican drivers are. Like, I don't think I've ever driven somewhere where people were like, yeah, sure. Like, go ahead. Like, I'm going to let you in. Like, oh, you're in the wrong lane. Like, that's cool. Like, you go ahead, move over. Like, everybody was really, really kind. Like, they have to be the kindest drivers I've ever encountered in my entire life. I feel like New Yorkers might want to come down there for a little bit and get a little bit of Puerto Rican driving experience. And then like people would like poke their nose out in traffic, like totally it's not their turn, but then like traffic would stop and they'd be like, oh, that's cool, just like go ahead. I don't think I've ever experienced that anywhere else. And then also the other thing that was a bit problematic were potholes. We have major potholes in Michigan just because of our weather. So I'm familiar with potholes. This isn't like my first pothole adventure. But the potholes in Puerto Rico, they were a different breed of thing. They're cavernous. Yes, you're right. And we did have a tiny car, which also I do suggest, like, do not rent a giant car. Rent something small because it would be challenging to get around with something big. But a couple of them I thought, oh my God, they're going to take this entire car down and we are never going to get out of here. We are going to be trapped into this pothole. So yes. Okay, so what else is on your list?
The other thing that really surprised me was a little bit about you and I. I was surprised that we do not like to sit still. Like, we tried to have a relaxing time in Utuado at Casa Grande in the mountains, which was a peaceful and serene, beautiful place. But you and I just went stir crazy. So I was kind of like, oh man, I thought we would be able just to kind of chill out and relax, but neither of us could do that.
Yeah, that's for another podcast episode maybe as well too. Okay, so other things that I was surprised about is the diversity of the landscape. The island, as I mentioned in the beginning, has like so much to offer. It is incredibly gorgeous. Like it is, there aren't many islands, I feel like, in the Caribbean. Go ahead and email me if I'm wrong. That you'll find rainforests, you'll find mountain ranges, Puerto Rico is also home to a dry forest, which it's one of only 738 of the United Nations International Biosphere Reserves. They receive only 30 inches of rain a year. And to put that into perspective, the rainforest in Puerto Rico, which is El Yunque, receives between 120 to 240 inches of rain. So it's so crazy to have that huge of a change in landscape on the same island. As you've already said, like the island isn't giant, but you can like find so much, and it's really, really beautiful. I think most people, when they think about going to Puerto Rico, it's only for the beaches, but there's just like so much more to enjoy. And like I said, when we were putting together our itinerary, I struggled with it because there was so much that I wanted to see, but I kind of had to pull back and be like, okay, this is going to have to go for a second trip. Oh, and the other really cool thing that Puerto Rico is famous for are their bioluminescent bays. There are 3. There's Mosquito Bay in Vieques, La Perguera in Lajas, and then the one that we visited, which is Laguna Grande in Fajardo. These are really amazing. Like, it was a crazy experience. Slightly terrifying because you're in the dark, in the water, in the middle of nowhere, but really, really, really cool. And like, again, there aren't too many. I think about like other islands that I visited, and I don't know that I've encountered quite that level of diversity in the landscape.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I also would add too that the population changes in different areas. Like, I was just completely surprised by Ponce. Like, that used to be the capital on the island, but it just seemed like a completely deserted place, basically. And when we got the explanation about it, it was like, well, when the U.S. switched the capital to San Juan, all of the business and all the jobs basically were in San Juan. So people moved out of Ponce and moved up to the San Juan area. And now the population in San Juan is about 334,000 people. So it was really interesting to see that, where I bet you Ponce's population wasn't even half of that. And it looked barren and deserted, but it was still super interesting to see like all of these beautiful old buildings and all this old architecture, and just like a ghost town. It was
a literal ghost town. It was like out of a movie set. And also the other thing that affected Ponce was, so not only the change in the capital, but there was an earthquake. Gosh, I don't remember how many years ago it was, that devastated the city. And so you will see ruins of buildings that have not been repaired next to really beautiful buildings. Some of the architecture, I meant to look this up, reminded me a lot of New Orleans, and like very colorful, very beautiful. But yeah, you'd walk along these little streets and there would be nothing going on and no one. I kind of thought at one point, like, are we in a movie? This is where Michael Myers lives. But yeah, it's really sad, like how that has shifted. And I was reading some things online that people just, for work, they've had to leave. So I'm curious if Puerto Rico is investing in like getting people back into some of these areas to kind of disperse population. But again, that's a conversation for another time.
And then the weather change from one side of the island to the other side of the island, it felt like
drastic.
Yeah, you're like in a desert when you're in the southern part of the island, and then in the northern part of the island, it felt like temperate 80s every day, but with a nice cool breeze. It reminded me,
super comfortable.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of being like in Honolulu or in Maui in Hawaii, where like you had like the breeze coming from the ocean, and it never felt like you were really super sweaty like you did on the south side of the island. And then like every day it was like clockwork. In the morning on the northern part of the island, you'd wake up, it would rain, the rain would go away, the sun would come out, and then you'd have this beautiful kind of 80s kind of day. So I thought the weather was really interesting. And and then the museum that we went to, I think that was really interesting too, to learn more about the history of the island. So there was quite a few things I found really interesting, but I went way off topic. So let me get back to
No, I think too that I noted the history as well and culture, because there's a lot of diversity in Puerto Rico. Starting with like the original indigenous people, the Taínos, and that they are the ones who gave the island the name Puerto Rican, which there's a popular song. I looked it up and now I've lost it. Shoot. You guys can Google it. But it is referenced in that song. And it translated in English means land of the brave Lord. After the Spanish colonized the island, the Taínos were enslaved. Many died of diseases. And from there, then African slaves were brought over about the 16th century to substitute the loss of the Taíno population. And so then you get the African influence, specifically in the town of Loíza, and that was really interesting to learn about that. We did a cool tour that did go over to Loíza, and so we went to kind of a little community center. We learned a little bit about the art, learned a little bit about bamba, which was the dance that was kind of brought over, was very unique. It was enslaved people's only kind of form of self-expression, and it was also I think meant to be a bit of resistance to what was going on at that time. You can still learn quite a bit about the indigenous people. There's a really neat route that is kind of an informal tour, so to speak, that covers going from north to south on the island through the Central Mountains. And it covers their ceremonial centers, tombs, caves, and petroglyphs. And one of the stops is the Centro Ceremonial Indígena Caguana. I probably butchered that one, in Utuado. It's about an hour and a half from San Juan in the middle of the island. There are also sites in Jauja, and then it ends in Ponce, which we've already mentioned, which is about an hour and a half. I'd say actually 2 hours, maybe, from San Juan. And there's another center there that goes through some of the indigenous culture. But in San Juan as well, you mentioned that museum, and that museum covered not only the indigenous culture in Puerto Rico, the Taínos, it covered the indigenous cultures throughout Central America. Yeah, so that was a really unique thing to learn about, to see. And they covered art, they covered different tribes and how their hierarchies worked, clothing,
religion,
all kinds of things. Yeah, that was great. That was an old San Juan. Definitely highly recommend that for sure.
Another thing that surprised me is that the number one export on the island was not what I thought it was. Not even export, but number one.
What did you think it was?
What did I think it was? I thought it'd be... I thought the number one product on the island would have been tourism. But
me too.
But tourism really wasn't number one. And the reason for that is because, and this will tell people what the number one thing on the island is in 1976, Section 936 of the IRS code exempted taxes on corporations. So a bunch of big businesses moved onto the island, and
specific big business, though.
Yes, specific big businesses, which were pharmaceuticals. So they moved on to the island to get away from the taxes in the U.S. because it was close and it's a good place to ship from. And it actually created a big boom of jobs, and it really made San Juan grow into this really big place. Well, and then things started to decline, and then the government slowly rolled back Section 936 of the IRS code, and they started to see a lot of disinvestment there. But pharmaceuticals is still the number one export on the island. It's not tourism, which completely surprised me. But before Section 936, I guess it was, and really before the Americans, really, it was like sugarcane and coffee.
That makes sense.
and things like that. It wasn't like this big booming industrial place that San Juan eventually became because of the tax breaks that companies got from the IRS.
Yeah. There's still a big tax break, though. The island is exempt from federal taxes still.
Yes, but like I said, they're slowly rolling that back, or they started slowly rolling that back in like 1997, I believe. I was reading about this today. And as a result, they started to see more of a recession there. And the recession hit the people hard there. And like buildings started to empty out, and people stopped investing as much there. But there is still a big pharmaceutical industry there, and that's still the number one industry in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I was surprised to hear that as well, and that's sad well, I guess that's another podcast. I keep saying that, but the island has really been hit with a lot of things. I feel like it doesn't need a whole another thing thrown at it.
So the decline in manufacturing actually led to them being $70 billion in debt by 2015. And in 2016, the U.S. oversaw a restructuring of Puerto Rico's debt, which was like, well, countries can't go bankrupt. Like, they don't allow countries to go bankrupt, or states or territories, basically. So Puerto Rico was one of the places where they did a first restructuring of debt within the United States, and that's when they tried to start turning things around economically for them. So that was just recent, 2016. I mean, yeah, you think about that, and then you think, like, then the next year after that, then
they were hit with a hurricane.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the poor island. Yeah. Well, okay, let's move on to sunnier topics.
Right. We got dark.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I think, but that's also part of travel, is that, and I tell people this all the time, because everyone wants to have the experience like that everything's super sunny and beautiful, and you only like experience the good parts of travel. But that's not travel. That's not life. Like, we have to learn about these things, and these things also frame our perspective of a destination. I was just having this conversation with someone else this morning, that's so important, because then it helps us appreciate the people. It helps us appreciate the landscape. It helps us appreciate so much of it. And instead of saying like, oh, there's so much trash there, or the potholes, or whatever it is to, bitch about, like, you have some perspective of like, oh my God, like, these people, like, they just like keep going through it, and haven't gotten a break. But also the history of the place is so vast, and there's so much to it. It's not a straight cut thing. That's not the right saying. I can't think of the saying off the top of my head.
They're beautiful on the surface, but their beauty is also from within. There's more to that country than just the beaches, palm trees, than the beaches and the palm trees, and and the cruise ships or whatever, which
stupid cruise ships. Yeah, I mean, but like I said, like, you can say that about so many places. You can go somewhere and like, you should take some time to understand more than just the surface level, like, get into these details, get into the history, talk to the people, all of those things. So, okay, moving on. Specifically for this episode, I think people will be interested to know that there are multiple vegan and vegetarian hotels on the island. Puerto Rico has always been an island that I recommend for clients because of its friendliness. And most of the time with places, you're like, oh, maybe there's like one place. There are at least 4 that are very vegan, that are vegetarian or vegan. And there are a couple others that I think are very friendly, if not maybe vegetarian. I need to investigate them further. And we got to stay at a couple of them. And I visited some others. So on these types of trips, these are like considered research trips for me, for future clients, for possible future tours. And so I try and visit a variety of different places and things so that I have a better understanding as I'm advising people. Kind of makes sense. So we stayed at the Dreamcatcher in San Juan. And it was actually just recently awarded a Michelin Green Key. A Michelin Key is an award that's given to hotels that excels in many areas that include design, service, and personality. Once you see the pictures of this place, you'll absolutely see why from just the design and personality. It's outstanding. We also stayed at Casa Mountain Grande Retreat, which is in Utuado in the mountains, and you mentioned that already. And then separately, I visited La Botánica, which is in San Juan. It is a vegan hotel. And then La Botánica is also affiliated or owned by the same person who runs Finca Victoria, which is on Vieques, which is a really beautiful island not too far from mainland Puerto Rico. And these were all really cool places. Dreamcatcher also, the owner of that, operates some other apartments throughout San Juan, which are equally beautiful. And we did stay at one of those as well, too. And they carry the same kind of charm that the main Dreamcatcher hotel carries as well. So if the Dreamcatcher, because it's small, all of these places are small. If it's sold out, that's something else to consider. So there are a couple others as well that I'll mention. The Rainforest Inn in Rio Grande is a vegetarian B&B in the mountains. Super cute little place. And Luquillo Tree Houses, also in Rio Grande, is vegetarian as well. Super small. I think there are only 5 tree houses, 5, 6. So it's one of those places. All of these places really like book ahead. We're not talking about 100-room type places. And the neat thing about La Botánica and Dreamcatcher, when you look at them both, there are a lot of similarities between the two. The owner of La Botánica and Finca Victoria actually used to work with the team at Dreamcatcher. So if you like the aesthetic at Dreamcatcher, you will love the aesthetic at La Botánica because it's kind of a similar carryover. But these are all like really unique parts, I would say, of like this itinerary of our stay. It's really nice to be able to stay at like a vegan or vegetarian place. And also a place like all of these were locally owned or locally run. So we're not talking about massive chain hotels. So again, going back to supporting Puerto Ricans, more of the money is being able to stay in the destination.
Can I touch on the aesthetic of the Dreamcatcher a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
So you walk into this hotel. I'm using air quotes here, hotel.
Yeah, there has to be a better like word to describe it because it's not like a hotel. It's like this sleeping museum of sorts, like design museum. It's one of the most unique places I think I've been.
So we had, let me just start with our room. Our room was off this kitchen area, which is a communal kitchen area where anybody can go fill their water bottle up or have tea that's always available and coffee that's always available. But
it was like an open air communal area as well, with like trees growing in it and like a mismatch of eccentric kind of patio furniture.
Yes, and it is outdoors, but it's covered, so you're not going to get wet per se standing out there. And then you go into your room, which has an initial door, and the initial part of your room is also outdoors, where there's an outdoor shower, which is like right for us. It was right when we walked into our room.
Wait, but I also have to make a caveat. Every room is different. So I visited other rooms in the museum hotel, and they're not all set up like this. So continue with describing ours.
But it seemed like all of them did have an outdoor shower, though.
You didn't visit any of the other rooms. How would you know?
Well, I looked in the doors when they were cleaning them just to kind of see.
Oh my gosh, that doesn't count. Anyway, continue, okay, hotel advisor.
So then you have this outdoor shower, this outdoor bathroom, and then attached, or at least for us, attached to our outdoor area was a room, and it was big enough probably to hold a queen size bed with 2 end tables, and that room was air conditioned. It was closed off, and you could lock everything you need to in that room. And it was separate from the outside area. And I thought the setup was just so ingenious. It was really comfortable. It was well thought out. And it made me think like, oh man, this is the way to live. Like, I think this is really, really cool. And it seemed like they reused a bunch of old materials, like our shower, for instance, which I don't know if I loved this or not. It wasn't a shower head, but they basically took old copper piping and then like soldered it all together and punched holes in it. And then like we had this rain shower effect on the outside. Then we were standing on like plank wood. So all the water like ran underneath the structure. But you're outside, you hear birds chirping and coquis, and which are frogs that are super annoying, which we probably will touch on in a little bit.
We probably should, yes.
And you've got all this vegetation around you. It was just really, really well thought out. And then off of the communal area, they actually had their little kitchen. And at certain parts of the day, they had chefs back there cooking, like at an island, like that would be at your house. And you just kind of walk up to them and say, hey, there's a board that tells you what they have available. And you walk up to them and say, hey, I would like, a tofu scramble with some toast, like if it was on the schedule there. And they'll whip it up for you right away. There's Wi-Fi throughout the place, which was a little slow, but if you wanted to work in that space, you really could. It was just really well thought out, and I really enjoyed it.
Hey there, fantastic listeners. Let's hit pause on this episode for a thrilling announcement, a golden ticket to Globetrot with Veggies Abroad. Veggies Abroad isn't just your go-to for vegan guides and trip planning tips. It's your passport to extraordinary small group journeys, carefully crafted by the ultimate veggie pusher and your favorite podcast host, me, Rebecca Gady-Sawicki. I've spent countless hours researching the best vegan hotels, food, and experiences, and now I'm bringing those experiences directly to you. Join me and my newfound veggie pals on escapades to exotic and exciting destinations around the world. Whether it's trekking through the Thai jungle to witness elephants in their natural habitat or exploring Iceland's famous ring road, our adventures are nothing short of spectacular. And guess what? Those aren't the only exciting trips awaiting you. So what are you waiting for? Cruise on over to veggiesabroad.com pronto. Well, how about after this episode is over to explore our dazzling lineup of tours and secure your spot today. Yeah, they had so they had a vegetarian menu and then a vegan menu, and it was posted on a chalkboard. It was like such a cool aesthetic. Like it seemed like a really cool use of like old things with some modern design choices. It was unlike anywhere else that I'd been in. Each one had its own personality. Each room has its own like name, and that's kind of reflective of the aesthetic. I did visit like a couple suites upstairs. One of them was called The Poet, and it was a little bit more dramatic and romantic. And I don't remember what the name of our room was. I think
it was Traveler.
No, that was at a separate place. The Traveler was at a different location.
Okay. Yeah. Did it give you like upscale hostel vibes?
No, I don't think so. I never stayed at a hostel that was that nice or cool.
Just from the aspect that there's like this communal area where like all the guests kind of go and hang out. I'm not saying this is anything like a hostel because this is way more upscale, but it's
way more expensive than a hostel too.
Just that vibe where you're kind of like gathering with other guests.
I think it's just the community aspect of it. And it's the same at like La Botánica where they're bringing in like the people who are coming to these places, I think have, more of a personality that's open, that wants to meet people, wants to talk to people, wants to like work. It is a more open kind of community that it draws, because this isn't the kind of place where you're like, You're going to walk right in the front door. You hopefully can avoid a human being and like check in on an iPad, then go to your room, like check in, go to sleep, leave, and like never have an opportunity to talk to anybody. Like none of these places are like that. All of them like really want you to feel like you're home. And like as you were explaining the kitchen thing, like yeah, it was very much like you were in someone's home, like you were hanging out, like you could chat with the chefs and talk to them about their day. Yeah, it was really good. You did have something to eat at the Dreamcatcher. I did not eat there. I think you had banana bread or something, right?
It was banana bread with Oreos crushed inside of it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess that tells everybody enough of how tasty that was. So then the other one, Casa Mountain Grande Retreat, which is in Utuado. One note about getting to Utuado is that you need to take your time. The road is super windy. If anyone's ever driven the road to Hana, it's not quite to that extent, but it is very windy. It is through the mountains. It is at times like very, very small. And like for the vast majority of the travel through that area, I don't know that I went over 40 miles an hour. So you have to take your time. And it's very isolated. You are about 30 minutes from the nearest town. There are not shops nearby. There are a handful of neighbors, but like not really. I don't know that I saw really other human beings aside from like the human beings that were staying at the retreat. It was like the surroundings were incredibly beautiful. It was a little rough because it did rain quite a bit while we were there. And so there's no air conditioning there as well either, because the weather is like pretty darn temperate. It's not super hot. It's just kind of in the middle. It's a little bit humid, but not like oppressively humid. So it's comfortable just to have the windows open. But that does bring me to the elusive coqui frogs, who are incredibly loud. And I was reading the reviews and everyone's like, I love listening to the coqui frogs. And I fell asleep to the coqui frogs. Me, on the other hand, could not sleep with those guys chatting away in the middle of the night. I really wanted to find a way to like get rid of them. I slept with earplugs at one point because they annoyed me so much. They're just super loud and they get even louder at night. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are a light sleeper like me. And Casa Mountain Grande is a vegetarian resort. One thing that was a little annoying is that they do publicize that it is a plant-based menu. It is not plant-based. It is vegetarian. And one thing I did find like kind of challenging in certain places is that the difference between vegetarian and vegan wasn't always completely well known. And so you did have to completely re-explain to each new staff member, like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean X, Y, and Z. And so that I was really looking forward to the food there, but we didn't have a ton of options. There were a couple options on the breakfast menu and then a couple options just on the dinner menu. And we were originally supposed to be there 3 nights. And so that after 2 nights, you're like, okay, I've tried each thing. Cool. But by the 3rd night, you're like, oh, I don't want to have the same repeat kind of thing. So it was fine. But that, I'd say, the isolation was a little bit more challenging. And like you touched on that, they do have yoga, they do have massages there. So if like you're really good and like really do want to like just have a book and sit in a hammock, like this is definitely a place for you. It's beautiful.
The key word there is that Casa Grande is a retreat. So I think for a lot of people going there, the idea is that you're going to escape from, the rigors of everyday life. You're going to go, you're going to bring your book, you're going to lay on a hammock, you're going to listen to the coqui frogs, you're going to look out at some beautiful mountain foliage and see various types of birds and things like that. And you're just going to relax and be fully immersed in a tropical mountain experience.
Yes.
But you're not going to have a lot of other things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to consider when you're there that to get anywhere, you're going to drive at least 30 to 45 minutes because of how twisty and windy and hairpin turny, that's a word now, hairpin turny the roads are. So yeah, I would say Casa Grande isn't for everyone. And yes, I also got tired of the food there. And I found that I really needed to be specific about what I didn't want. Like you just said, like, I don't want cheese on my salad, please. Like that kind of.
Yeah. 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 But it is a neat place.
They really tried.
Yeah.
They did a good job after having things explained to them. And I appreciate the concept of the place.
I do too.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then La Botánica, I went over there during the afternoon to check out some of their rooms. Equally as impressive as far as like the room layouts and the creativity as the Dreamcatcher. One thing I appreciated about your stay here is that your breakfast is included. Breakfast is not included at Dreamcatcher. La Botánica is also vegan. And they do like I think they do a different breakfast, and they focus on an Ayurvedic concept as well. So every morning you get something different, and then coffee and tea is included throughout the day. And I did take a note. So coffee is a known commodity, or is a popular commodity in Puerto Rico, and there are some coffee haciendas you can visit. And they did have some really neat coffee blends that were out, and I kind of kicked myself because they offered me coffee when I came in, but it was like 2 p.m, and I hadn't been sleeping because of the damn frogs. And so I was like, no, you can't have coffee. But since I wasn't sleeping, I should have tried the coffee. So if anybody goes, like, try the coffee and tell me how fabulous it is. So, and the other thing that's included with your stay there is yoga. They do yoga daily in the morning, which is really nice. And it's right on a main thoroughfare. So it's in both of them, Dreamcatcher and La Botánica, are in Ocean Park neighborhood of San Juan. And so it's like blocks from the beach, blocks from shops and things like that. So it's really great. I do have an article, we'll drop it in the show notes, that does go into some details about each of the places. And I will be updating some other things as well, including the other ones that we did not visit during this excursion. So moving on from hotels, we're 40 minutes into this, and we have yet to discuss food, which is crazy. What was your favorite spot?
Not every single one of our trips is about food, right? I mean,
yeah, but food is a big part of it. Let's not lie.
We do love traveling and eating vegan food everywhere we go. So what was my favorite spot? Was that what you asked?
Yes.
That's a tough one. I liked a few places. I think maybe I could give you like top 3.
Just give me your first one, and then I'll give you my first one. Okay,
I think the best place we ate at, because it was solely vegan, was El Grifo.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot about El Grifo. I didn't even put that on my list. Oh, my list is crap now. Wow. Okay, yes, agreed. El Grifo is great.
It was a little bit off the beaten path. We stopped there on our way from Luquillo to Ponce. And
it's only about 25 minutes, I think, from San Juan. So it's not completely out of the question, like if you're staying in San Juan, to take the drive and go and visit it.
Not completely out of the question, 100%. So we stopped at El Grifo, which kind of seemed like in a little suburban type town, wouldn't you say? It was really quiet, real sleepy little area.
I don't know, it seemed pretty urban to me, but it was sleepy. It was quiet. It also seemed like a town that maybe at one point was really busy, and now things have moved to San Juan.
So we went there. We had a really nice meal there. I think you had a tofu scramble there.
No, I had a tortilla with like a cashew sauce on it and something else. It was terrific.
And I had some waffles, I believe.
You had a plantain waffle topped with a seitan bacon and
Yes.
something else that looked amazing.
It was absolutely incredible. It was super tasty.
Yes.
It was light. It was fluffy, but at the same time, it was plantain, so it had a little bit of a savory taste to it. It was really delicious. I loved it. And
Another note about El Grifo, though, is it was on the Food Network. I don't know how long ago. I forgot to look that up. Guy Fieri visited.
I was just about to say that. Yes, I was about to say. Like we're on our way out of this place, and the chef's looking at us, and we're saying, "Okay, bye to the chef." And we look on the wall, and it's. I'm not a big fan, but there's a big signature of Guy Fieri. It must have been one of his diners, drive-ins, and dives show. Or whatever. But yeah, I can see why. That place was really, really delicious. I had a great matcha there, and I believe you had a wonderful coffee there.
I had a poquito latte.
Un poquito latte.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was trying to cut down on my caffeine consumption, but anyway.
So that was my number one. I really liked that place, but there was quite a few places I liked. But what was your favorite place?
My favorite was Berlinghieri, which is in San Juan. We went there twice. It's a vegetarian place that really focuses on more of a veggie, plant-forward focus, and also a lot on supporting local farmers, seasonal things. They had the menu wasn't giant, but it was super flavorful, super creative. We actually ended up going there twice because we liked it so much. And this shows how much caffeine I've consumed during this trip. I had a strawberry latte there, and I still think about that damn thing. And I've actually, the other day, I was like, I think I could recreate that at home if I just took some time. It was super, super good. But I also had, what did I have there to eat? I had a bowl, like this spiced tofu bowl, terrific. And then the second day, I had pumpkin tostadas, super, super delicious. Loved it.
Well, you know what's weird is you only got that strawberry latte the first time you went there. You didn't get it the second time we went there. So I was thinking,
because I had already had 2 espressos before going there the second time, so I didn't need it. We're making this whole thing about my caffeine consumption now. Once again, can we have a repeat that the damn frogs kept me awake for 8 days? So I had a lot of caffeine. I don't want to talk about it.
Loves the coffee.
Moving on. What are the other ones that you really liked?
So there was a juice place in Luquillo. We haven't talked a lot about Luquillo and just outside of the rainforest. I'm having trouble remembering the name.
El Yunque.
Not El Yunque. The name of the juice place. I remember El Yunque.
Oh, the name of the juice place.
Degrees. Yeah. Degree 18 it's called.
Yes, something like that.
Yes, it was called Degree 18. There wasn't a ton of options for us in Luquillo, but we went to this place a couple times as well. But they had empanada, a vegan empanada, but then they also had like bowls, like smoothie bowls and acai bowls.
Juices.
Yep, juices,
yeah.
like fresh pressed juices. That place was really good too. It seemed like there might have been some mainland American people running that place.
I got that feeling as well too, because I tried to speak to her in Spanish and she had no accent and she just went to English, and I was like, okay.
Yes, I noticed that. Oh, but,
yeah, that was nice. That was like a easy, light place to have, because I don't remember. We didn't visit too many other places in Luquillo, at least not too many people at places that really were memorable.
Well, it had to do with the hours too. Like that
was challenging.
Every place that we wanted to go that had vegan options or was a solely vegan restaurant seemed to be open like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or maybe just Wednesday, Tuesday. And then the hours would be like noon to 3. Like nothing was open late, and which it ended up hurting us at one point, because for those of you that or for some people that don't like the touristy spots where all the cruise ships are, because of the high prices, we did have to go to one of those spots. And
oh my gosh, yeah, that was so expensive.
I mean, I was happy that they had a vegan menu in addition to their regular menu. But basically, for the two of us to have, it was dinner, right? Do we have dinner?
It was dinner. I had tacos, 3 tacos, and you had some tofu dish, and it was $75.
Yeah.
It was outrageous.
It was absolutely insane. Like,
that's something to keep in mind for planning purposes because, that was super challenging. Most places are only open for breakfast and lunch. We only found maybe a couple places that were open for dinner. So you had to like really plan that out in advance. Otherwise you would end up hungry. And actually in the beginning of the trip, I felt like, oh my God, have I lost a little bit of weight? Because we've had to skip meals because the timing was that problematic. And then, I definitely highly recommend don't eat in Old San Juan. Go check out Old San Juan. It's cute. Neat. Go to the museums. There is a cat sanctuary at the tip of Old San Juan. The name of it escapes me. It's Gato Salvo, maybe. But if you search for cat sanctuary San Juan, it will come up. And that's kind of it. It's not a good destination for food because you will absolutely get hit with the most ridiculous of prices.
Yeah, don't eat in Old San Juan. No, it's too expensive. So one thing I would say is you can go to a grocery store and stay at an apartment type place.
We stayed at, so the owner of the Dreamcatcher does have some apartments. The Dreamers is what they're called, and they do have kitchens associated with them. The Dreamcatcher does have a kitchen as well, too. So you could bring some food back there, that could be microwaved or whatever, and that is really helpful. And as far as supermarkets are concerned, the best one to go to is the Fresh Mart locations. There's one in Condado. It's kind of like a mini natural food market, and so we did go there twice, and they have the majority of normal products that you would find anywhere else. It is keep in mind that it is expensive since it is an island. A lot of stuff is imported. Some stuff was similarly priced as in the mainland US, but some stuff I was like, whoa, we're not getting that. Dining hours, keep that in mind, plan ahead, avoid Old San Juan. 2 other places I wanted to touch on that were really great for food were Terrestre Cocina con Pasión and the Better Food Corps. They're both in San Juan. Terrestre Cocina, I do believe they're open maybe a little bit later. Better Food Corps has crazy hours. I think, honestly, you either go Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or you don't go at all. And the last part of the food section I wanted to touch on were some veganized Puerto Rican things that we did find, because I think that's a really great way to kind of connect with a culture, is to try and find food that's indigenous to the place that you're visiting. You can find pizza and pasta everywhere. Sorry, I didn't mean to just hit Italian foods there, but pizza and burgers everywhere. And so a few that we did find were mofongo, which is a deep fried green plantain that's mashed with garlic and salt and then added into it. You did have that, and I think it was the best one. We had multiple different mofongos. By far, I think the best one was a place in Luquillo, which was at a little kiosk. And they had specifically added a vegan option because they actually get a lot of visitors from India. And so another guy told me that they specifically have added they added a single option because they were getting requested for it. I really liked the one that you had there. I didn't love the other ones, but I felt like they did a super good job of spicing that one, and it was really fresh. And that was just right off the main highway.
I think it was Renea, and it was kiosk number 33. That's what I remember, for the people that want to go and try this mofongo. Plus, it's really easily portable at that place, at the kiosk, because it's made for you to eat on the beach, because the kiosks are basically food. It's like a big food court next to the beach. Yeah, so that's something that they do at a lot of the different beaches, is they have these kiosks with food. But that was by far the longest one with the most options. But out of all the options at that specific stretch of kiosks, number 33 was the one to go to. That you can build your own mofongo bowl. It was delicious.
Yeah, yep, agreed. The other couple of things, alcapurrias, which is a deep fried fritter. Fritters are incredibly popular in Puerto Rican cuisine, but they're often like some kind of deep fried meat. The one that we had was just green banana and plantain dough. I was kind of surprised. I expected it to be a little sweet, but it wasn't. You put hot sauce on it, and you liked it with the hot sauce.
I did, yeah. It was good with the hot sauce. It needed a little something because eating all that fried food, it started to get a little dry.
Heavy. Yeah. One thing I would say too is just keep in mind when you're ordering one of the alcapurrias is to ask if it's fried in lard. Traditionally, it was. That's not necessarily the case now because that's a bit more expensive, but something to ask. And so then let's see what else. Tostones and maduros, which is plantain. Tostones is the green plantain, and they are like smashed. And then maduros is sweet plantain. Those are my favorite. We also had arroz con gandules, which is like pigeon peas, which is very popular legume that's cooked with rice. Traditionally, it's cooked with some kind of a meat. We had it with, I had one version with impossible meat. That was kind of tasty. You had another version with a different kind of veggie meat in it. I thought both of those were really good. And then it comes with like rice and beans. And a couple others are empanadillas, which is like a veggie turnover, and papas rellenas, which is a mashed potato croquette. Traditionally filled with a meat and then fried, but they do have options where it's just like the potato. So those are some things to look out for. I did see it. There is a restaurant in San Juan called 100% HP, and so they do have some Puerto Rican dishes, so you can try some of these things. There were a few other restaurants as well that do have some of these as well. So something, just be on the lookout for food-wise. And I'd say out of it, I liked the mofongo the best. But some of it I couldn't eat because of the whole gluten-free thing.
Yeah, the mofongo was really good. I also liked the empanadilla we had at 18 degrees, the juice bowl.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good.
That was a really healthy version, I feel like, that you had. It was filled with like black beans and quinoa or something.
It was, and then they grilled it to warm it up. It was really tasty. I liked it.
Yeah. Okay, so we should wrap up things. We have babbled on for a while, and like this is why I think like I should start splitting these up. Looking back, and I feel like this could be helpful for other people if you're planning a trip to Puerto Rico, there are some things that I personally would do a little bit differently. I'll say what I think I should have done differently, and then you can add in yours. When we stayed in Luquillo, we stayed kind of back in the jungle off of a beaten path. And we stayed in a not renovated, but we stayed in a shipping container, which was really neat. I think some of this comes from hurricanes, that they're getting a bit more creative with building, but it's like a little shipping container hotel. And so that was like unique, but it would have been nicer to stay near the beach, either in that area or in Rio Grande. Another area that I really want to visit, and I think this is just a part 2 of the trip, is time in Patillas, which is in the south, in the Caribbean side. There's some great hiking there, and there's actually, I learned about a nonprofit that runs like a little like hotel, or I don't know if hotel is the correct word, but they do some really cool like conservation projects and some hiking in that area. And then more time in San Juan. I did really enjoy San Juan. There's a lot in the city. There's a lot of food in the city. I was really surprised with the amount of vegan options throughout the area that there were. And we didn't, I don't think we hit half of them, which is kind of a bummer, but definitely a good reason to go back.
Yeah, and we didn't see half of the island too, like the whole western part of the island. To me, I think if I was going to structure this trip again, I would do beach with a couple excursions out for adventure and then back to beach. Like I would start relaxing just because I'm getting away from the cold. then I would go and do some adventure type things. Like they have, you can rappel into caves and explore caves and hiking in different places like that. That would really interest me. And then after doing that, I'd want to come back to San Juan and the beach and just kind of hang out and try a bunch of different food places. That seems like a more perfect trip to me. I think we tried to throw a lot of stuff in. I think we had a really nice time. But I think, we prioritized, all right, we would need to be by the rainforest, for 3 days. And then we need to be in the mountains for a couple days. And then, we need to be back in San Juan. So I think if San Juan is your hub, and then you go off and maybe stay a day by the rainforest, unless you really like the rainforest, then you can prioritize more days there. But you can go there, see what that's about. And then you can go into the mountains, see what that's about. But then always come back to the main city, because I'm a city guy. That's how I would structure my vacation next time there.
Interesting. This is why you don't do the planning.
Sure. We would plan very differently.
Yeah, we totally would. So would you go back? And if you would go back, what other areas do you want to explore?
So I would go back for sure, 100%. I would want to explore the western side of the island. I know that there's a bunch of vegan options there too. I saw online as I was kind of doing research to try and find different places to go, that there was a lot of places to eat. Is it Rincon? Is that the big city?
Rincon, yeah. Yes. It's known for surfing.
Yeah. So I would want to check out that side of town. But yeah, that's probably where I would go next time when I'm there.
Easy. So I would too, 100%. I'd already thought about it. I was like, I wonder when I could fit in an adventure back. I want to get to some of the islands. A surprising note is that there are 143 small islands, islets, and cays that make up Puerto Rico. Most people just think about the mainland. Two of them that I really want to check out, and you can either get there by a small plane or a ferry, is Veggies and Culebra. And then I want to check out more of the Caribbean coast. I'd mentioned Patillas, which is in the south. And then, like you said, more of the western side of the island as well. I mean, I think easily when I was thinking about this, like you could go to Puerto Rico for a month and still like not cover everything and not get bored. And I feel like that's not the case with a lot of Caribbean islands, because there's like the beach and maybe a little bit of other things.
Do you feel like you could build someone the perfect 3-day itinerary if they wanted to?
3 days?
Well, okay. For how many days would you suggest, number one? And then could you build someone
at least a week?
Could you build someone the perfect 1-week itinerary to really see everything that they might want to see?
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's dependent upon what they want to see for sure. But I'd say at least a week. Like if you're just going for a long weekend, then I think you're just staying in San Juan. And that's like a whole different conversation of how long, of what do you really want to get out of this? Maybe staying closer to home is a better use of your money. And that's a whole nother podcast episode. But I definitely suggest at least a week. We had 8 days. And that was decent for a first excursion, but not long enough.
Never long enough.
No. Any last thoughts on Puerto Rico?
I don't think so. It was really beautiful there. I think everyone should go and visit there and support a lot of the locals there, because I think they're good people and their culture is beautiful, and I think that people would really love it if they went and saw it.
I agree, and that is a great place to end it until our next adventure. And I was trying to think when you'll be back again. I think you're back again for another destination discussion soon, but I guess people will just have to wait and see when you'll return.
Sounds good. I'll be there for you whenever you need me.
Until next time.
See you then.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. If you'd also like to learn more about upcoming Veggies Abroad tours or get additional travel help, visit veggiesabroad.com and also join our newsletter. It's the best way to stay up to date with loads of new content, like where to find gorgeous vegan hotels, what to eat in cities around the world, trip planning tips, and so much more. Well, that's all I've got for now. Until next time.